franchise hour.
These various tools
book to help me start the business.
And then I did specialize in
the last years, more than 5 years right now, we have figured out the systems and the processes to ensure that the franchising program will be a success.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Franchise Hour, like every Thursday at 4 p.m. So also today, we have the episode 2 of the season 6, and I have a very, very interesting guest today. He's very well known in the business and particularly in branding. And before we talk to him, we have a little video to introduce him, and we show you that. All right. It's my real pleasure today to have as guest with us Mr. Harry Tambuatco. Harry,
Hi, Rudolf.
welcome to the Franchise Hour.
Yeah, thank
It's
you
my
for
pleasure
having me.
finally having you on my show. And as most people know, you're a real expert in branding and in the award business. So let's talk about you are running already Superbrands in the Philippines. For how many years you're doing that already, Harry?
Let's say over almost 2 decades now.
2 decades already.
Yes,
Excellent.
yes.
How did you
We have,
actually come to the idea to 2 decades ago to go
well,
into the award business and the branding
uh,
business?
it was actually more of an accident. You know how opportunities seem to come up. I've always been in marketing. I have a background in it. I was working with McCann Erickson some many years back. I guess because of the many life's experiences, it fit like a glove. Uh, One doesn't really realize the concept of branding because we don't really teach this in the academe. Basically, what we have, especially in the masteral courses, are basically on marketing, and it zeroes in on the principles of marketing. And what happens is there is actually a sixth principle, which is not very much how do you say it, popularized over the years, which is the concept of branding. They look at branding basically as advertising, as product titles, and that sort of thing. Now, the video you just saw actually promotes outstanding. Since the start of the COVID, um, I have given a 1 year freebie to most of our program participants. We have not had an award, face-to-face award, obviously, because it's prohibited and it's not really safe. But what we did do is we pursued the outstanding program. You see, Superbrands is for products and services. The outstanding program, which is owned and operated by Superbrands, is wherein we promote outstanding people or VIPs, and they're broken down into different categories. On the political side, you have the outstanding congressman, which has been running for 28 years, going on 29. I was able to purchase that product from a certain person in Congress, where it was a pseudo private and combination with Congress. I took it away from them and made it basically a private trade. It's no longer with Congress, and we do it as an independent corporation. And we moved on to mayor, outstanding mayors. We have the outstanding governorship program. We have the outstanding local legislators. They've all been averaging about 8 to 9 years now, and the awarding goes on annually. And we have the outstanding professional, of which you, Rudolph, was awarded sometime 8 years ago, or no, 6 years ago.
2012, Henry.
There
Eric.
you go. 10 years
2012.
ago.
I was, yes, I had the honor to be awarded Outstanding Professional Award. That's
There you
correct.
go. Yes. And
Yes.
many ask me, especially those today, they still ask me, how does one become an awardee? Now, I'll talk about the first four without touching on the professional. Basically, when you have mayors, congressmen, local legislators, and the governors, basically these people already have a mandate. They are already basically outstanding in their own right, simply because they have a mandate given by their constituents. They are no ordinary Joe, so to speak. They already are well on their way. They're already outstanding because they have been chosen in a democratic process, which is called the elections, and they're given that mandate and that position over the years, 3 years normally, and 6 years for the president and the Senate. Yeah, six years. Now, that question is always boggling me because they always seem to ask as if the award system is a competition. I'd like to stress Superbrands for products and services, together with the outstanding program, is not a competition. It's not about good, better, best. It's about people who are already outstanding on their own. For example, Rudolph, when I met you, when I asked you to be an outstanding professional, I nominated you into the program. It is obvious you're a successful businessman. You are a franchise expert. You pursued it. I'm familiar with franchising because I did it before, way 28 years ago with Magoo's Pizza. I remember when I was handling that, and I had a hamburger. I had about six hamburger shops then. It was called Bobby McGee's, and I had restaurants. I before I got into the branding trade, I operated some 32 restaurants, food and beverage restaurants, here and abroad. And having a stint of 3, 4 years in McCann Erickson, plus I was being in the entertainment field. I got into PR. I got into the field of broadcast, as you know. I did TV for many, many years for multiple broadcast stations. And I even bought and owned a radio station sometime about 5, 6 years ago, 8 years ago. This is how I eventually landed into Superbrands. Now, what do we do in Superbrands? Well, Superbrands, you have to be formally invited into the program. Uh, the barrier of entry, mostly to a lot of the bigger corporations, is the cost of entry or participation. It is prohibitive, I have to admit. And the choice, once you're in the program, they have a choice. The participant, the brand, can actually maintain his super brand status. But every 2 years, it's a biennial program. So every 2 years, they need to renew into the program. Again, being prohibitive because of participating cost is the way that it is operated. What do we do? Basically, it's co-branding with our logo, as you have seen. Brands take on our logo and co-brand with their with their products. So that's how they identify themselves to be in the program. Now, the concept, I guess, does it work? Most of our brands, our mortality rate for those that pull out of the program is very small, it's insignificant. Of course, with the turn of the COVID, it's a different story altogether. There are many ways and there are many issues that have come into play. And I'd like to use your program to talk about the future more than the past or the program that is, if that's what you want, Rudolph.
Go ahead with that, Harry.
Yeah. Well, okay. In March 16, I remember specifically it was a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. I went down my office into the street and I was having a cigarette. And people were walking past me, and this is along Ayala Avenue. And I was saying, wow, everyone's wearing masks. And I thought this must be the Taal volcano debris. And only to realize, coming in from the radio and news, that there's a pandemic, which I'm not familiar with. I know the word pandemic, but unless you really experience this, it's another, some virus or whatever, but not realizing the significance or the what is to come or how bad it was supposed to be. So I sent everybody home, and you watch and you learn from the news, and you find out it's bigger than what you think it is, and then you learn the real meaning of the word pandemic. Shortly after, 2, 3 weeks later, it wasn't ending. It was becoming more of reality, and it was a whole new way of life for all of us. Now, for business, I said, gee, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? Is this the end of it all? One of my first decisions then was to let go of the office. If this would continue, which it did, and it's in March this year, it'll be 2 years. First thing I did was to close the office for everyone's protection, and from there try to work on how we go online. Zoom and Seam, what's the product? This is StreamYard, and they weren't available then. Neither was the messaging, other than just texting and emails. Of course, these were all developed because of the requirement of the marketplace. But business continues. It has to. It's a livelihood for many, in business in general. What do I do being the CEO of Superbrands, having so many clients? What do we do? Where do we go? Does marketing stop? Do the groceries stop? Does life stop? Is it the end? All these questions still stand to be relevant today with Omicron and the latest infections that we are all feeling. Uh, the answer is no. We pursue. Look at you, Rudolph. You expanded abroad other than the local market. You have been teaching. You have been generating an awareness towards franchising in your own capacity and in your own concept and work and product. Being a franchise developer, you're helping businessmen. You are creating proprietors. You are expanding the market trade, so to speak. I, on the other hand, talk about branding and how one brand can get ahead of another. When it gets to that, that's where the competition is. But what is competition? Is it competition the availability to generate more sales over the next product? Uh, it depends how many ways you get to look at it. When I'm confronted with new clients and they ask me, what I like to do is I create this analogy, if I may, very quickly. We are born, it's called 0 year, and for the next, during that period, our parents are giving us names. We are certified in the birth certificate. In my case, it's Harry Tambuatco. But who is Harry? At that point, it don't really matter because your world is limited to you, your parents, and your siblings, basically. Then you start going to school. You go through the elementary stages of school, high school, and university. At that point, are you branding already? I'd like to say that we are branded at that point, simply because of our name and our education. This is the first pillar of marketing, the birth of the brand. In other words, in marketing, it's called the ability to identify an existing demand. People require a certain product. Then you go into the second principle. How do I nurse that demand, or how do I make use of that demand? That's the creation of the product or the brand at that point. So now you're entering your 20th year, going to your 30th, 40th year, and based on the education and the what you have developed over the years, even in school, you begin to you have a tendency to brand yourself, but unconsciously, you're either a good student, you're a bully, you're in the drum and bugle corps, you're in drama, you are a studious person and clean cut, or you are rough and you're a beatnik of sorts. When you get to your 20s, 30s, you start to work. Very rare do you become a proprietor. Normally, you go and get employed and get some experience, even though if your parents own the company or the corporation. Then you start creating the brand. In marketing, what happens is you now create the product. You've created the product, you are now packaging it. You are creating all the necessary details of what the product is through packaging. You're studying its cost, how it's going to be made, how much will it cost, and how are you going to go about it. Now, when you hit your 40s, you are now more or less stable and you know the brand. At that point, what you do is you try and generate a network of people or a network around yourself to understand how the marketplace is and how you will deal or how you will live within your community. In the pillar of marketing, at this point, you concentrate on distribution, going around, making sure your products are now made available. You already have a brand, you have the product, you have a price, you know its cost. Now you distribute it. If you don't distribute and to a certain area where the demand is, it's no use because no one can get your product, no one can buy it. And then lastly, the concept of advertising to generate an awareness towards your product. That's when you're about in your mid 50s. You are now confident. You dress up, you cut your hair, you keep your nails clean, you create the if you're a musician, you tendencies to have the long hair and whatnot. If you are a movie star, you play the role, so to speak, even in your private life or in public. And if you're a professional, for example, if you're a banker, you tend not to dress crazy, or you are more prudent and more stable, so to speak. At that point, that's when branding now comes into play. I'd like to call that the sixth principle. But what and how important is branding? You, uh, Rudolph, you're very familiar with it. Eh, And basically, I like to define branding in a very short sentence. Branding is all about the delivery of the brand promise. Now, if you can deliver that brand promise, like this soap will turn you white, this ball pen will write in red ink, this ball pen can write upside down, this pill will make you lose your headache, etc., etc. Now, if your product promise is delivered 100%, that's what makes you the brand. Everything else is tactical and strategic. That's why you have bylines, you have promotions, you have sales promotions, and that sort of thing. Maybe you should ask me a question, or else I'll just keep rapping.
It's so fascinating listening to you, Harry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
Uh,
on.
well, we have the future now. I think this is what most people would be more interested in. This is not an academic lesson. This is not history. Although with history we learn how to react accordingly. You remember the Tylenol story, the crisis that happened some 25, 30 years ago, where there was some poisoning and it ruined It was ruining everybody. It was ruining the brand. How did Tylenol, for example, that's the product, that's the brand, they're still in the market today. How were they able to overcome? That was one big question I remember that we talked about a lot in a number of seminars. Well, it's basically addressing the pink elephant in the room. In other words, you have to be honest and straightforward and not create excuses for fumbles or mistakes. It's addressing it and being straightforward and looking at the different ways of correcting it. That's what they did, Tylenol. It happens in normal life, it happens as well. When you make a mistake, no one is 100% great and no mistakes. Even in marketing, people make mistakes. I remember when the black when toothpaste came out, and they had a black person on it. I forget the name of the product. You know, how can black toothpaste clean your teeth? You see, that was a brand error right there. It happened with soaps with a lot of marketing firms. And when trouble comes, this is what you call the crisis mode, crisis management. I've had to deal with crisis management with a number of my clients. Also, when I went into PR, I specifically did crisis management for some companies. And one lesson that has to be learned by most, if they have not learned it, is to accept the fault when there is fault. You know, the game of honesty is not only for faith and religion, it is also with marketing. Now, in politics, it's a totally different story. It's perception versus reality or truth. But does anybody know the truth? Does anybody know the reality? Does anybody know the difference between perception and truth? Uh, we have an election coming up. Do people know what is perception and what is real, what is true? The chances are, I'll tell you, 90%, 99%, no. Perception becomes truth. That's when the game of advertising and marketing come into play. That's when branding comes into play. I always suggest to my clients that when the board meets, don't just have the president and CEO there or the CFO. It is just as important to have the brand manager there. We have to remember brands live longer than we do as human beings. Uh, Look at Chanel, the House of Chanel. How many years? It's over a century. The proprietors, owners come and go because we pass, we die after 60, 70, 80 years. But the brand lives on. In the Philippines, you've got Tanduay, you've got Manila Times, you've got a number of brands that are about 110, 115 years old. If you don't begin to treat the brand with sensitivity, forget the brand that you created. You know, you put up a food stall, you start with a food truck. You have a good product, you have good price, you're in a nice suited location, but you don't care for your brand. You keep changing the product, you move, you have to build your brand, and it takes years to build it. Now, if you have a lot of money, great. Advertising always helps. But does it always work? Remember, our business is based on repurchase. If you sold one item once and that's it, that's not marketing. You know, the guy on the street, the hawker that sells you cheap products, and you buy it because it's cheap, and hey, I need that product. And then something goes wrong with it, or I want to buy again. You go back to the same street corner. The guy's not there anymore. There is no repurchase. There is no business cycle. Unless there is a cycle, then you don't have a business. Uh, like I said, I can keep going on and on and on. Going in the future, what do we do? Well, we need to pursue. We can't stop. Technology, for some reason, has kept up with the pandemic, with all its limitations. I remember having to after stopping my stuff and saying, okay, guys, we're work from home, it's easy to say, oh, you stay home. How do you communicate? How do you work together? Well, one, you've got to create an office in every work from home. So look at the purchases of laptops and desktops. It went off the roof. In 2020, I remember when it was most difficult to buy laptops. And then it was printers and then paper. Your office supplies doubled up based on the number of people. And how do you move your people around when you have to pay for your BIR? You got to remember with government, the regulatory capture is a game. How I wish it would work with marketing, with our consumers. It's easy with government. Like today, how did the central bank, they just issued about a month ago that you required all the banks, for those that do online, that you have to have an average daily balance for one corporate account that will work for e-government. You can't have one corporation and under it owning three or four and having one e-government facility. Every e-government facility you create, you have to have a daily average balance maintaining at 200 or they hit you at 2% per month. Now, isn't that regulatory capture by the
Yes.
banks? So barriers of entry are coming up just as fast as innovation is coming up. Thank God for Zoom and all of us going on air and being able to meet each other. I have been able to hold award events on the computer. Now, transportation, thank God for these motorcycles zipping all around the place. And the birth of, I never heard of these couriers in 2019. Even Lazada was not that popular. I knew there was online shopping, but I still like the idea of physically going down, touching the product, enjoying the walk into shopping. Well, men don't really shop. We buy what we need. And if something fits, give me five of that. How many colors do you have? You know,
That's correct.
that it makes it easier, right? And when you like a
That's what
product,
I do.
yeah. And if you like a certain product, you always go out and buy that. A certain food that you like. When you think of a certain cuisine, that's the place I want to go to. That sort of thing. Creatures of habit. But you see, innovation has allowed us to open up, and the marketplace is all open. But you have to keep up. Um, in the Philippines, how many percent are the people that hold credit cards? It's very small. How many people have bank accounts? I couldn't understand the concept of GCash at first, but all it is miniaturized banking, miniaturized, bringing to the level of a lower level of transaction without physical money and face-to-face movement. This is how we're moving. So is marketing going to be like this? I remember I had this in Superbrands. We have this annual product, this annual affair. It's called the Superbrand Academy, where I require all brands to participate, and if they don't, they're penalized. And when they when it's time for renewal, uh, I have the option of taking them out or not renewing them. And I require they participate. It used to be a 2-day seminar, and what we do is I take different themes. There was a time 8 years ago, 9 years, 10 years ago, we handled topics from sustainable energy to the environment, online for accounting basically, and inventory. Uh, online. Let's see, what are the other themes? We had so many themes which we felt was relevant for our participants, our brand participants. As of late, like this coming year, I will be doing it on climate change. It's called the gold standard because it's becoming a reality. I mean, look at the earthquake in Tonga, the eruption, how it's affecting all our lives. Uh, in these academies, we would tackle different topics that are relevant to brands. There was a time I chose celebrity endorsement. Do we use celebrity endorsement? You pay millions for a celebrity, but what is the purpose of the celebrity? If I'm not mistaken, if you have a new product, you want people to try it. and you don't know any other way of giving it unless you're going to, which is what they do in supermarkets. They call taste test, correct? But if your product is clothing, you can't give clothing away. Try these pants; it look good on you. You know, you come up with promotions and whatnot, and you have many different ways, and many different ways of enticing your market to try your product. Celebrities do this for you. If he's good enough, I like this guy or this woman, and if Thor, the actor, or Superman will use my product, it just might entice the market to try it once. But once they've tried it, the role of the celebrity is gone. It's done. And yet many brand marketers, professionals, big firms, multinational firms, they continue to use celebrity endorsement. But for what? It's the product that will, the repurchase is because the consumer likes your product, tested it, tasted it, now want it, and now demand it. The business cycle begins. At that point, the proprietor steps to the side. It's now a living, acting concept that makes money. Now, future, we have to keep going. We have to be, I'm not very IT oriented, but I've had to be. I've had to learn. There's no such, a GM today, a CEO today, or even vice president have no business being illiterate with the laptops and the computers. You can't, you are out. These are dinosaurs. The old dinosaurs are useless. They're done. Only thing you can learn from them is their experience and their guide when it comes to concepts. But unlike 10 years ago, you still meet a lot of CEOs who they display a laptop in their office, but it's just for show. I know I've met so many, and they don't even know how to communicate. It does not mean you have to get a young guy. It doesn't mean we're done because of our age. It just simply means we have to adapt. Now is what is being challenged now all around the world in the marketplace. Uh, the concept, of course, being challenged now all around is adapting to the internet, going online. What good is SM or Rustan's or the big shops if I can't go there because there's a virus? I can't go there because there's poor transportation. Do they close shop? Those who don't want to go online, that was one of the topics I handled about 3 years ago. Going online on your products while early. It's very tedious, mind you. If you have, let's say, 1,000 items, can you imagine filming 1,000 items, talking about the items, and then going on the multiple platforms? Today, the platforms are just so many. It's not just Facebook, it's Twitter, it's IT basically, it's the web. Even creating your web, even making bank payments. If you don't go online, you're messed up. Correct me if I'm wrong. In your case, franchising is totally different from the branding concept, although franchising has a lot to do with the concept of the brand. Because if the brand doesn't work, how are you going to franchise it? You can't duplicate and multiplicate. You can't.
That's correct.
First, the brand has to work. It has to be successful on its own. So the
That's
principle
correct.
of marketing, all principles are finished, done with. You have to be successful first. You have a business cycle and you have a working model. Your expertise is you professionalize that and you entice people who no longer want to be employed. They want to be the proprietor. They want to build their own brand. Why not? They build it with others, and they learn. Some use
Correct.
franchising just to learn and then go on their own. And some stay with it and improve on it. But you're helping the marketing system, the consumerism that we're all involved in. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's very much correct, Harry. One more question. Do you actually have only two left for you because you actually answered already all my questions anyway. But
I'm
one
sorry,
question,
Rudy.
one question in particular I have. What do you think about branding, especially now with social media and also with so much fake news out there?
Mm. The concept of fake news is a reality we all have to deal with. No one knows what is fake and what is not. Um, our role basically in the marketing is the ability to promote and generate awareness for our products. Fake or not, as long as the prices are not fake, because that can be controlled anyway when a purchase is introduced or is implemented. When I want to buy and it says I can buy it for 10 pesos, when in reality it's 100 pesos. That's when it's corrected. Now, when it comes to fake news, you have to get into the game of what is called in advertising the awareness game that needs to be backed up with some kind of investment. Now, I can't tell you what the percentage of cost you should allocate towards generating more awareness. We are all part of it's the fifth principle in marketing awareness, meaning advertising. And advertising is a direct relationship to cost, expense. So, based on how much you're willing to spend to promote your product, I have this I have this issue sometimes with super brands that come in. It's not a popular brand, but they are spending heavily on it. If they are spending heavily on it, they are buying 1 or 2 years ahead of time with advertising money. This is how the big marketing conglomerates or businesses come about, like Unilever, Palmolive, Coke, etc. They create new brands and they will pour hundreds of millions of dollars into it. Guaranteed, it will be go around and it will be known. Definitely, there will be an awareness for that. But whether it'll be an ongoing business cycle, whether it will succeed to that stage, is a different story. The brand or the product has to deliver itself. Like I said, the brand promise. If the brand promise is not there, it won't work. Do I answer the question properly? Need I expound, Rudolph?
If you want to expand, we still have time.
Uh, I guess the only way is to keep at it. It's not easy in the IT field, as you well know. It's expensive, and we don't know who to trust and who not to, and what platforms to use. But don't we have that same problem? What TV channel should I spend on? What radio station? Which billboards do I use? Which events down below the line do I attend and not attend? It's the same thing with the computers and the web and all the different platforms. It's a matter of some kind of awareness that is tutored onto you by the more expertise that handle and create all these awareness programs on the different platforms. I guess, and of course, content and branding has a lot to play with it, and that's the future, whether you and I like it or not, because this is the form of communication now, and this is the form of purchasing now. Brick and mortar stores, I don't know how they're going to survive the long run. If the pandemic doesn't ease up, that will be the end of brick and mortar stores. But never mind them because they can switch online. It's good that this way we're getting back at the landlords for overcharging rentals. It's our turn to take them down, that sort of thing, because they've overcharged anyway, that sort of thing. Maybe this is a new platform which we all are going to be. Our offices are going to be in our homes. This is better for the family. This is better for everybody all around. But I do miss going to a bar and meeting people and having a nice drink. That you cannot put online, you know. Certain things you can't do online, but
Correct.
this is the new reality. And if you don't adapt, close up. That's the way I see it. But if you don't have enough money, closing is just as expensive as starting up. And
Correct.
because of regulatory capture, wow, government will bury you deep together with the banks because that's
Correct.
their business.
Yes.
That's their trade. They collect. They require you and then collect. They regulate and then collect. For every move, we are wear a mask. So where do we buy a mask? Who's selling the mask? Get tested. My gosh, 2,300 for a swab. Are you kidding me? No, you have to have a swab test or you can't get back to work. I can't afford that if you're paying me 500 a day. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Well, this is the
That's true.
reality of today.
Yeah.
Now, is there still branding today? Of course there is. What you and I are doing on this video is branding. I'm talking about Superbrands. I'm branding. You're talking about franchising. That's branding franchising. We're marketing both our products.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a little more academic, but it's
Yes.
one and the same thing.
And with that, Harry, I have my last questions. What are your programs for 2022 in
Well,
branding? Any awards with
yes,
Superbrands?
yes, we will have our biennial award in 2020 when we got hit. You see, the program is for 2 years, 24 months for any brand that participates. Uh, Early in 2020, I decided to give everybody an extra year, a freebie, so to speak, while we study what was going on. And true enough, it proved itself that it's going to keep on going. In 2 months, we're going to be exactly 2 years. So everybody was given a 1 year freebie. In October this year, 2022, we will have, I pray, a face-to-face event, which we always have. If not, we will do it on the computers as well. We can do it. It works anyway. But if we have to, that's what we will do. And for outstanding, it's ongoing. Right now, we are about to launch the what we did for the outstanding program, wherein it's normally uh, for congressmen, it's just congressmen. For mayors, they're all individual. For now, because of what's going on, I created a what I call edition one, edition two, edition three, wherein you mix up all the VIPs and all the mandates and all like the congressmen, the governors, they're all in one book. At which point, well, we all know, other than the politicians branding themselves, it's an awareness program due the elections. Let's face it, that's what it is as well. And what we do is we just create a new platform. It becomes our books, our promotions, the awards become a testament to one's successes and or failures in their office. Because not everyone is going to be president forever or congressman or whatnot. Professionals have their profession and their licenses behind them. And even then, who will promote? You never go around putting on a badge and say, I'm good looking. You don't put on a badge and say, hey, I'm honest. You know, you need another person, another party to do it, a third party, so to speak. And I am that third party when it comes to the VIPs and to the programs. For professionals, we have a number of businessmen, contractors that I know of that have asked to come in because the contractors fascinate me. They don't only build houses and bridges and roads and buildings, they are nation building. They do something, not just a product that's consumerism. It is consumed by the consumers through the use and utility of the building, but it creates the country. It builds more buildings, more factories, better roads, more infra, and they fascinate me as well. Any other questions, Rudy?
Yeah, no, here we show now if anybody wants to get in touch with you, with Superbrands,
Yes,
they can get in touch with you through the landline
yes.
8401 8965 or your cell phone 0920 951 6015 and your email at harrytampuatco@gmail.com.
Yes.
So I hope there's some of our listeners today who are interested in the services of Hari when it comes to branding and the awards.
Mm.
And I really enjoyed listening to you. I always enjoy listening to you. It's
You're a friend. You're biased, Rudolph. You've been a friend for a long time.
it's
And
really true. So I really enjoy listening every time to you. So before we end the day, I have to do a little self promotion also, Hari.
yes,
And I'll show our screen now. First of all, in case you're interested to get a book all about franchising, we provide it's free. Just send us a
yes.
notice, and we give away the book all about franchising. Just send us a notice, and it will do. If you have a business and you want to develop it, so far we developed more than 800 Filipino companies into franchise system. So RK Franchise Consultancy is doing everything what you need to be a professional franchise. So from structuring the franchise, the manuals, the legal aspect, the marketing aspect, and also if you're international, if you're not listening from the Philippines, but from any other country, we do franchise developments in 35 countries through our other company called Franmundo. But if you're in the distribution business and you want to expand that, our company GoFran helps you there with distributorship packages. So from distributor structure, the marketing, the contracts, the manuals, territory mapping, everything what is needed for you to be a professional distributor. And of course, you can become a member of the Filipino International Franchise Association. All our RK Franchise Consultancy clients are member of that, and we help them with the trademarks and mystery shopping, etc., etc. We're also publishing the magazine franchising.ph. It's a virtual magazine now for the last 2 years. And very interesting this month, we are featuring the companies of the Phoenix Group, so Phoenix Petroleum, Phoenix LPG, Family Mart, AutoWorks, etc., all of those who have been developed also by us into a franchise. If you want to learn more about franchising, you can go to the YouTube channel RK Franchise. We see all the franchise hours from the last 5 seasons are there. And on February 2, my birthday, it says the wrong date here, February 2, 2022 at 2 p.m. So 2222 at 2 p.m. I'm doing a seminar about franchising. And the next episode on the Franchise Hour, next Thursday at the same time, 4 p.m., we have JP Morales with us, the owner of Righty, and he will promote the event from AFI, the Franchise Bonanza, to you. All right. Therefore, I'm also done with my announcements for the day. Again, I would like to thank so much Hari Tambuatco for his insights and what we learned from him today. Every time we learn so much from him whenever he talks. And thank you so much for being my guest today. And I wish you the best for 2022 and all the awards and all your branding work. It's really fantastic. And so I thank you for that, for being my guest today. And I thank also all my viewers. And I see you again next Thursday at 4 p.m. Bye-bye.